If you had told me years ago that a single moment could haunt an entire empire, I would have laughed. I believed then that money solved everything, that success could wipe clean any stain left behind by ambition. I should have known better. I built my fortune from dirt. No family connections, no silver spoon, no safety net. Just pure, stubborn willpower. At 32, I was the face of triumph. 7 booming businesses bore my signature. Skyscrapers glittered with my logos. To the outside world, I was a visionary, a leader, a man who could do no wrong. But behind the polished magazine covers and champagne toasts, I carried a secret so heavy it nearly crushed me. Her name was Elena Cruz. I noticed her long before I knew her name. She was a maid at my flagship hotel, a girl with tired eyes and a spine of iron. Always the first to arrive, the last to leave. She treated every smudge, every stray fingerprint, like an offense to personal honor. I admired her work ethic. In a fleeting, detached way, I thought of her as another piece of my empire's machinery, reliable, unseen. Until the night everything changed. We had just secured a massive investment deal, the kind that catapults dreams into dynasties. The staff threw a party. I stayed late, basking in the glow of victory, whiskey glass in hand, arrogance humming in my veins. Elena found me sitting alone in the conference room, loosened tie, smirk fading. She offered to call me a ride. I declined. We talked. Or maybe I talked, and she politely nodded. I don't remember the words. Only the way the room spun and the way loneliness, masked as success, wrapped itself around my throat. One thing led to another. And by morning, I convinced myself it meant nothing. Weeks later, she knocked on my office door, hands shaking, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant," she said. And just like that, the walls of my empire trembled. Panic devoured me. A scandal could topple everything I'd bled for. My investors would flee. My rivals would gloat. I made a decision that would define me. Not the man I wanted to be, but the man fear turned me into. I fired her, handed her a fat envelope of cash, told her it was for her own good. I disguised cruelty as generosity and sent her away before anyone could ask questions. I never saw her again, and I never allowed myself to wonder what became of her. I buried the memory beneath work, awards, and endless victories. If I never spoke of it, it would disappear. Right? Wrong. 8 years later, my past came roaring back to life. I remember the morning like it was branded onto my skin. I was sipping coffee in my penthouse, scanning headlines, expecting the usual: stock prices, mergers, celebrity scandals. Instead, I saw my own name, splashed in bold across every major outlet. Millionaire entrepreneur accused of abandoning pregnant employee. New details revealed. The article featured a photo of her, Elena, standing tall, no longer a scared girl, but a woman forged in fire. And beside her, holding her hand tightly, stood a small boy, maybe 7, maybe 8 years old. His dark hair was a messy halo around his face. His serious eyes were unmistakably mine. A cold dread seeped into my bones. This wasn't a smear campaign. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was truth. Truth I had spent nearly a decade running from. And now, it stood in front of cameras, daring me to deny it. The story spread like wildfire. Talk shows, news panels, hashtag movements. Everywhere I turned, the world was demanding answers I didn't have the courage to give. What stung most wasn't the betrayal of public favor. It was the realization that I had betrayed myself long before I betrayed Elena. The life I had meticulously built, the one defined by quarterly earnings, market expansions, and luxury penthouses, felt paper-thin under the weight of what I had done. I had thought success made me invincible. Instead, it made me blind. And now, the reckoning I had avoided for so long had finally found me. I was no longer the untouchable billionaire. I was just a man facing the consequences of a moment he could never undo. And for the first time in 8 years, I realized no amount of money could buy back a soul. Public opinion turned faster than a lightning strike. One morning, I was hailed as an unstoppable genius. By nightfall, I was the villain of every headline. It wasn't just the media frenzy. It was the slow unraveling of everything I thought was unshakable. Shareholders demanded emergency meetings. Sponsorships dissolved without warning. Charity boards politely reconsidered my participation. I watched helplessly as trust, the rarest currency in business, evaporated overnight. Yet none of it compared to the quiet war raging inside me. For the first time, I truly looked at the man I had become. All the years of pushing harder, climbing faster, shouting louder, it hadn't made me stronger. It had made me hollow. I didn't know how to fix this. How do you apologize for abandoning someone when the apology feels so pitifully small against the hurt you caused? The legal team urged silence. They suggested settlements, private mediations, public statements crafted by PR experts. They spoke of mitigating damage and controlling narratives. But every word felt like another lie layered atop the first. I had to see her. I had to see them. No cameras. No attorneys. No scripts. Just the broken man facing the broken pieces he left behind. I found her at a small community center on the east side of the city. It wasn't hard. She wasn't hiding. She had built a life where my money had never reached, in a neighborhood too poor for headlines to care about. I parked my sleek black car blocks away, ashamed to pull up in a vehicle that cost more than most houses there. As I approached the building, every step felt heavier, as if the air itself was thick with judgment. Inside, children's laughter echoed off worn brick walls. Colorful drawings plastered every surface. The scent of crayons and hope filled the air. And there she was, Elena, kneeling beside a group of children, helping them paint a giant canvas splashed with vivid blues and greens. Her hair, once hastily tied back during hotel shifts, now flowed freely down her back. Her face, though older, radiated something stronger than beauty, resilience. And next to her, my son. He stood proudly holding a paintbrush, his small hands smeared with every color imaginable. He laughed, a sound so pure it struck something deep within me. I stayed frozen in the doorway, unable to breathe, unable to move. The boy looked up and saw me. Those eyes, my eyes, locked onto mine. Curious, cautious, unknowing. He didn't recognize me. Of course he didn't. I was a stranger, a ghost haunting a life I had abandoned. Elena noticed his gaze and turned. For a moment, she simply stared. I watched the storm pass through her face. Shock, recognition, pain, and then a calm, measured strength. She rose slowly, wiped her hands on a rag, and walked toward me. I opened my mouth, desperate to find the right words. But nothing came. Nothing worthy. She stopped a few feet away. Arms crossed, shoulders square, chin lifted defiantly. I had rehearsed apologies in my head 100 times. None survived the reality of facing her. I'm sorry, I whispered. Pathetic. Insufficient. But true. Her eyes, once warm and eager to please, now held no trace of fear. Only fierce protectiveness. Not for herself, for the boy. You don't get to be sorry for 8 years of silence, she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. I know, I said, my own voice breaking. I needed to see you. To see him. She hesitated, then glanced at the boy, still watching us curiously. His name is Lucas, she said. Lucas Cruz. Not Lucas Sinclair. Not my name. I had forfeited that right long ago. He's beautiful, I said. It sounded so shallow compared to what I felt, an ache so deep it eclipsed everything else. You gave up the chance to know him, Elena said simply. And we survived without you. Tears stung the back of my eyes, but I blinked them away. This wasn't about me. It never had been. I didn't finish the question. I didn't even know what I was asking. Forgiveness? A second chance? She studied me, weighing invisible scales only she could see. Lucas knows he has a father, she said. But he also knows his worth isn't tied to anyone who walked away. Those words hit harder than any public scandal ever could. I don't want to disrupt his life, I said quietly. But if there's any way I can help, be there, even from a distance, I'll do whatever it takes. She nodded once, curt but not cruel. That's not something you get to decide anymore, she said. And you don't get to fix your guilt by throwing money at it. Every syllable burned. But she was right. She deserved anger. She deserved dignity. Lucas deserved more than a check with my signature. I don't want money, I said. I just want to be better. For him. For me. For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Not forgiveness. Not acceptance. But maybe the faintest beginning of possibility. You want to be better? Elena said, voice steady. Then prove it. But don't expect anything from us. We owe you nothing. And with that, she turned and walked back to Lucas. He grinned as she knelt beside him, pointing proudly at the chaos he'd created on the canvas. She laughed, a real laugh, and hugged him tightly. I watched them, heart splitting in two. For the first time, I realized the empire I had lost wasn't my skyscrapers, my companies, or my titles. It was this messy, beautiful, imperfect life I had abandoned. And if I ever hoped to be part of it again, it wouldn't start with grand gestures or flashy apologies. It would start with humility, with persistence, with patience. For once, it would start on my knees, not standing tall. I didn't return to my corner office. I didn't return to luxury yachts, five-star hotels, private jets, or red carpets. Instead, I returned to the part of the city where no one knew my name, where money couldn't buy forgiveness and titles meant nothing. I found work where Elena volunteered, quiet, invisible work, painting classrooms, repairing cracked sidewalks, organizing food drives, jobs no one celebrated, but everyone needed. At first, nobody trusted me. I didn't blame them. To them, I was just another outsider playing savior. Maybe they thought I would vanish once the cameras left or when guilt no longer gnawed at my insides. But I stayed, day after day, month after month, sweating under the sun, scrubbing until my hands blistered, showing up before dawn and staying past midnight. Not because I expected a reward, because it was the only thing that made sense anymore. I often caught glimpses of Elena and Lucas. They were always busy, painting murals, tutoring kids, hosting weekend soccer matches. I kept my distance, a silent figure working in the background. It hurt more than I can describe, watching my son grow up one fleeting moment at a time without being part of it. Sometimes he glanced my way, curious, wary, but he never approached. And I didn't push. I learned to measure my days not by profits, but by something far rarer, trust rebuilt one moment at a time. A nod from an elderly neighbor. A thank you from a tired mother balancing two jobs. A high five from a kid who finally learned to read. Tiny victories. Priceless ones. Every day I peeled back another layer of the man I had been. The arrogant boy chasing wealth. The selfish titan who crushed others without blinking. And slowly, painfully, I became someone new. Not a billionaire. Not a CEO. Just a man trying to live without breaking more things. One evening, the center hosted a small festival. The whole neighborhood buzzed with energy. Tables overflowed with homemade food. Music floated through the streets. Kids raced around with painted faces and balloon swords. I stood quietly by the grill, flipping burgers, invisible by choice. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lucas approach. He moved cautiously, hands jammed into his pockets. His sneakers scuffed, his t-shirt splattered with paint. His face was serious, too serious for a boy his age. He stood in front of me, silent, staring. I wiped my hands nervously on a towel, afraid to speak first, afraid to ruin whatever fragile thread had brought him here. You built the new playground, didn't you? He asked finally. His voice was steady, but a little wary. I nodded. I helped. Lots of people did most of the work. He shrugged. I like it. The slide's awesome. A small, genuine smile tugged at his mouth. I felt something crack open inside my chest. a sliver of sunlight piercing years of darkness. "I'm glad you like it," I said. "I'm happy to help." He shifted awkwardly, toeing the ground with one shoe. "My mom says you used to be really rich," he said. Blunt. Honest. Kids didn't sugarcoat things. I admitted. And very stupid. He laughed, a quick, surprised laugh, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "You don't seem stupid now," he said. Then, after a pause, "You seem different." I swallowed hard, blinking fast. "Trying to be," I said softly. He looked at me for a long moment. Then, in one sudden motion, he held out a paper plate with 2 sloppy burgers stacked high. "Here," he said. "I made these. They're kinda messy." My hands trembled slightly as I accepted them. Messy. Perfect. Like everything good in life tended to be. "Thank you," I said, voice thick. "I bet they're the best burgers here." He grinned. And in that grin, I saw a glimpse, just a glimpse, of possibility. Of maybe, one day, being more than a stranger in his life. The months blurred together after that. Seasons shifted. Leaves fell. Snow blanketed the battered streets. Spring breathed new life into cracked sidewalks. I never pushed for more. I never demanded time. I simply showed up. Present. Reliable. Unchanging. Sometimes Lucas would help me repaint walls or plant flowers in the community garden. Sometimes we said barely 10 words. Sometimes we talked about everything: school, soccer, Marvel movies. Never about the past. That wound hadn't healed yet. Maybe it never would. And Elena? She watched from a distance too. Guarded. Careful. But not as angry anymore. More like someone who had built walls so high they forgot there was sunlight on the other side. I never expected forgiveness. I didn't deserve it. But I realized something even more powerful. I could still live a life worth being proud of, even if some doors never reopened. This wasn't penance. It wasn't a transaction. It was simply right. One rainy afternoon, as I was cleaning up after another food drive, Elena approached me. Umbrella tucked under one arm, rainwater dripping from her hair. She stood there, silent, the weight of years hanging between us. Finally, she said, "You didn't have to stay." I met her gaze, steady. "No, I didn't, but I wanted to." She nodded, as if filing that answer away somewhere deep inside. "I see you," she said softly. "And so does Lucas." For the first time, in her eyes, I didn't see anger, or fear, or bitterness. I saw something even rarer. Respect. Maybe small, maybe fragile, but real. And sometimes, real was enough. The day everything shifted again started like any other. A cloudless morning, warm wind whispering through the streets, kids' laughter rising in the distance. I was planting seedlings in the community garden when Elena called out to me. Her voice was calm, but something in it made me stand up straight, heart thudding hard. "Can you come inside?" she asked. I wiped my hands, nodding, and followed her into the small center office. Lucas sat in the corner, legs swinging nervously, a tattered soccer ball tucked under one arm. The room buzzed with a quiet energy, thick with something unsaid. Elena closed the door, took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something," she began, voice steady but low. "Something you deserve to know, and something Lucas deserves to hear too." I froze. Every part of me braced for impact. She looked at Lucas first. Her face softened, crumbling under the weight of years carried alone. "You're old enough now," she said to him, her hand trembling slightly. "You deserve the truth about your father." Lucas's brow furrowed. He glanced at me, confusion swimming in his eyes. "I thought he's not around," Lucas said slowly. "You said he left before I was born." Elena's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "No," she whispered. "That's not what happened." She turned to me then, locking eyes in a way she hadn't since the day I betrayed her. A silent bridge forming, trembling but real. "You never abandoned us," she said. "You never even knew about Lucas." The words hit me like a wrecking ball. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. "I tried to tell you," she continued, voice cracking. I wrote letters, called your office, begged to meet you. But your assistant, your people shut every door. I was nothing to them. Just a mistake they were paid to erase. Her hands twisted the hem of her shirt. Tears welled in her eyes, but didn't fall. I wasn't strong enough to fight harder back then, she said. And by the time I realized I couldn't reach you, it felt too late. You were married. Powerful. Untouchable. I didn't want to ruin your life or Lucas's. So I stayed silent. Silence roared in my ears. The walls seemed to tilt. I staggered back, gripping the edge of a table to stay upright. All this time, all the years lost, because of a lie, because of my arrogance, because I built walls so high that even truth couldn't climb over. Lucas stared at both of us, wide-eyed. Then in a small voice he asked, "So, he's my real dad?" Elena nodded, tears finally sliding down her cheeks. "Yes, baby. He always was." Lucas turned to me then, his face unreadable. I dropped to one knee, lowering myself to his height. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't dare wipe them away. I wanted him to see everything. Every crack, every flaw, every truth. "I didn't know Lucas," I choked out. "If I had, I swear, I would have been there every single day of your life." He stared at me, processing. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Lucas moved. Slowly, uncertainly. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. I shattered. Every wall, every mask, every lie gone. I hugged him back, gripping him like the lifeline he was. Sobbing openly, uncaring who saw, uncaring about anything except this boy who was my son. My son. Elena knelt beside us, pulling us both into her arms. A family broken once. Healing now. Not perfect, not polished, but real. So real. That night, under a canvas of stars, we sat on the battered playground together. Elena, Lucas, and me. Lucas clutched a worn-out football, tossing it up and catching it with clumsy ease. Elena leaned against me, tentative but there. A sign that forgiveness wasn't a door slammed shut forever. Maybe just one that needed careful unlocking. I told Lucas everything he asked. About my old life. My mistakes. My regrets. My dreams for what could come next. I promised him, not in grand speeches, but in simple words, that I was staying. Not to fix the past. Not to erase it, but to build something new. Stronger. Better. Together. He didn't ask for riches. He didn't care about bank accounts or properties or empires fallen and rebuilt. He just wanted me. Present. Real. His dad. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. More than enough. Everything. I never reclaimed my billionaire title. I never returned to the top of glossy magazine covers. But I built something greater. I built a school for kids like Lucas, where dreams weren't crushed under poverty. I funded scholarships for young mothers, single fathers, and anyone fighting for a second chance. I devoted my days to being there for every scraped knee, every science fair, every bad dream. I wasn't a tycoon anymore. I was a father, a partner, a man who understood that true wealth isn't measured in digits, but in hearts held close. And every time Lucas ran into my arms after scoring a goal, or Elena laughed beside me over burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings, I knew without a doubt I was the richest man alive.